Hey, welcome. So today we are going to dive into the surprising science of learning. We're going to get into why we forget so much of what we study and, way more importantly, how you can actually use brain science to learn smarter, not harder. Let's get right into it. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You pull that all-nighter, you cram for a test, you walk into the exam feeling like an absolute genius, and then, poof. A few days later, it's like the information just vanished. It's super frustrating. But what if I told you that's not really a personal failure, but actually a totally predictable pattern? Yeah, because of this number right here. According to some groundbreaking research, within just 24 hours of learning something new, you've probably forgotten up to 70% of it. I mean, think about that. 70%. That is a staggering amount of lost effort. But here's the really good news. This isn't a you problem. It's a human brain problem. See, our brains are wired for survival, not for remembering, complex chemistry formulas. They're designed to be incredibly efficient, which means constantly clearing out information that doesn't seem absolutely critical. So the key to better learning isn't to fight this ancient wiring, but to understand its blueprint and actually work with it. So, okay, let's start right there with that blueprint. If we want to learn how to learn, we first have to get a handle on the basic mechanics of how our brain actually processes and stores new information in the first place. So, first up, think of your working memory kind of like a small sticky note. It's what you're using at this very moment to listen to me and process what's on the screen. It's amazing for juggling a few ideas at once, but man, it gets overwhelmed really, really easily. You just can't fit a whole textbook on a single sticky note, right? To store that information for good, we need something way bigger, and that's your long-term memory. Picture it like a massive, well-organized filing cabinet. The entire goal of effective learning, the whole point, is to move information from that tiny little sticky note into this permanent cabinet. That transfer, that is the most critical step of all. So how does this filing cabinet even work? Well, when we learn something new, our brain immediately searches for an existing file to connect it to. This is exactly why experts seem to grasp new concepts so quickly. Their cabinets are already packed with rich, interconnected files. For novices, though, new info often has nothing to stick to. And that's why real, deep learning is all about building those connections. Okay, so if our brain has this giant, amazing filing cabinet, why are we so darn good at forgetting? Let's take a look at the first major hurdle that every single one of us is up against. All right, meet the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. And I gotta warn you, it's a little brutal. It's basically a graph of that 70% statistic we just saw. And it shows that our ability to hold on to information doesn't just gently fade away. No, it drops off a cliff. I mean, just look at how fast this drop-off is. Within a single hour, you could lose half of what you just learned. After a day, 70% is gone. And after a month, you'd be lucky to hold on to just 10%. Our brain basically runs a use it or lose it system, but it's on hyperdrive. And this isn't just some abstract theory. You live this curve every single day. It is the exact reason why cramming for an exam feels so useless in the long run. It's why you can meet 10 new people at a party and only remember one name. And it's why that language you started learning just evaporates without constant practice. That's the curve, right there in action. But forgetting isn't the only thing holding us back. Oh no, there's a second, much more emotional hurdle that can be just as damaging. It's the loss of confidence in our own ability to learn. This confidence crisis, it often kicks in when we start to believe that mistakes are failures, instead of what they really are, learning opportunities. When the environment around us punishes being wrong, we just stop wanting to try. We stop taking risks. And suddenly, the very act of learning starts to feel dangerous. And this can create a really devastating downward spiral. So first, you've got intense pressure that's all about results, not the process. That creates a fear of making mistakes, which leads to avoidance. You just stay silent. Then we start constantly comparing ourselves to others, which only highlights what we think our weaknesses are. And then finally, that belief that I'm just not good enough really starts to set in. At that point, genuine learning has pretty much stopped. So we have two enemies, right? A brain that's literally wired to forget, and a culture that can absolutely crush our confidence. The solution isn't just to try harder. It's to learn smarter. It's about designing a better approach for our minds. So let's open up the toolkit. The absolute foundation of this new approach is a really powerful mindset shift. For way too long, we've used what's called a deficit model, seeing brains that work a little differently as broken or needing to be fixed. The neurodiversity model completely flips that script. It says there is no normal brain. Instead, there's a huge spectrum of natural variations, and each one comes with its own unique strengths and perspectives. So how do we actually fight that forgetting curve? Well, there are 3 really powerful tools. First is spaced learning. Instead of cramming, you review information in short bursts over several days. This tells your brain, hey, this is important. Second is active recall. Don't just reread your notes. Close the book and force your brain to pull that information out. It's tough, but it builds incredibly strong memory pathways. And finally, microlearning. Break big topics into small, manageable chunks. This keeps your working memory, that little sticky note, from getting totally overwhelmed. And what about that confidence crisis? How do we tackle that? Well, first, we shift our focus away from just the results and onto the process. Praising effort builds resilience. Second, we set small, achievable goals. This helps build momentum and belief with every little win. And maybe most importantly, we reframe our relationship with mistakes. An error isn't a failure, it's data. It is the perfect clue showing you exactly what to work on next. And finally, we have to design the learning environment itself. Simple things can make a huge difference. Visual supports, like diagrams and charts, can help clarify complex ideas for literally everyone. Flexible seating acknowledges that some brains just think better when the body can move. And having clear routines helps reduce anxiety, which frees up precious mental energy to focus on what actually matters, the learning. So I'll leave you with this thought. We talk about learning all the time as if it's a matter of raw talent or how smart you are. But what if that's just the wrong way to look at it? What if success has less to do with the brain you were born with and more to do with creating a world where your brain, in all its unique glory, has everything it needs to learn, to remember, and ultimately to thrive?